So the fear mongers are going to hate this video, my friend. Why? Because we have some phenomenal news to share about the housing market in 2023. And my friends that continue to make all the fear-based content in the housing market, I'm going to send this to them. And I'm going to say, hey, just why don't you watch this and do us all a favor and report on some good news for once. And they're going to say, no, because good news doesn't get me as many clicks. So I'm excited to share some good news today, Mr. Frost.
I know. I think that I choose optimism because it's easier.
Yeah.
And it's the data's not that bad. Like, is housing exploding and is it 2021 all over again?
No.
But you know what the funny part is like when you look back at 2021, everybody was pissed off at price appreciation. They're like, dude, I can't get any of my buyer's offers except I got a guy that's a great buyer. He's FHA, not getting accepted. I had another great buyer that's 5% down. They don't have $200,000 in the bank to cover an appraisal guarantee, so they can't get their offer. Everybody's like, I can't get my offer. I don't know. I'm going to quit real estate.
Yeah.
Because I can't get any offers accepted. And now all of a sudden rates go up, but prices become more manageable, or there's more opportunity in the market. And they're like, housing crash.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, it's like the
I'm
chicken
going back to work at the parks.
It's the chicken or the egg, right?
I know.
And so
is that what that means?
Yeah, chicken or the egg means like you're just never happy.
Yeah.
You're not happy if inventory is low and prices are high. You're not happy when there's more inventory and nothing's selling.
Yeah. Okay.
I
suck at sayings. You know, I'm not
hey,
good at
that's
sayings.
you got great sayings. So
that's not one of them.
Let's I want to start off this conversation. I got to watch my little, what do we call them?
Ticks?
Yeah,
Did you tick?
I think I ticked one
right,
once. I want to start
Lesson learned.
off by there's really 4 data points today that I want to share with the audience. It's great news for what's ahead for the mortgage market, for the housing market in 2023. So people can hopefully combat the fear type content because everyone's freaking out. Our agents are freaking out. The agents I coach are freaking out. Clients are freaking out. Well, we've got some good news. The first thing is the CoreLogic Mortgage Report, or the Loan Performance Insights.
Right.
So this is just real.
That's what everybody's waiting on.
Yeah, and I put
They're
this.
like, I'm just waiting on this, on the final number that we talk about here. That's what everybody's. This is the crash, right? Is
that's right?
There's now going to be way too many homes for sale because of foreclosures, right? Or poor loan performance.
That's exactly right. And I posted this on my Instagram this morning, and I'm sharing the screen right now. 30 days or more delinquent on a national basis, right? So can you see this okay?
Yeah.
All right. So this represents a 1.2 percentage point decrease in the overall delinquency rate compared with August 2021. And so when you look
that's 30 days. So that's knocking on the door to problems, right?
Yeah.
That's like the first hurdle in losing your house. And that number's decreasing.
Well, look at them all. So you got 30 days or more, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90, 90 to 120, 120 plus, and then the actual in foreclosure. And so you've got August 2021 versus, and nobody thought there was any issues with foreclosures in 2021. Well, if you look at everything, 30 days or more is lower. 30 to 60 days is about the same. 60 to 90 days is the same. 90 to 120 is lower. 120 past due, lower. And so what's interesting about this is all of our, I don't know what you would call them, people that have made content about a housing market crash, we're really, to your point, really betting on this report coming in to show, to say, look, this is where we're going to get this huge inventory spike because we're going to have massive foreclosures. That's not what happened at all.
No, not at all. And again, you have to understand that even that the reason that number is bad is that it's because it's low, and a foreclosure, like a foreclosed home, is a function of the market. And I think a lot of it, and we call them whatever we want, right? Like fear mongering, or investors, or experts, or economists, or capital, whatever you want to call them, right? They project these things that they want. They want a foreclosure crisis. That makes a lot of sense for somebody that's looking to invest in real estate, but it's simply not it's not what's happening in the market. Like and you go back, and everybody goes back to, an increase in foreclosures, and you immediately go back to 2008,
right?
When. Like there was a part in 2008 where there was a thing called a strategic default. Do you ever hear that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could buy your neighbor's house for $300,000 less than you owed on your own home.
Absolutely.
So that's one piece of it. The other thing on here, and again, this is like mortgage and real estate. This is our industry amnesia.
Right.
But we forget that in 2008 we learned a lot. 2012 we learned a lot, and in 2020 we learned a lot. And what did we learn about? We learned about how do we keep people in their homes when things get sideways in the economy, right? And we learned about forbearance programs. And when forbearance first came out, everybody just got put in forbearance, and then they took the forbearance back, and then it was like there's 3 ways out of forbearance. There's all these different programs. One of the things that's going to protect us from a massive foreclosure crisis is that we have these programs in place now. We know how to use them. We know how to get people in them. We know how to get people out of them. And that data points and protecting banks from becoming real estate companies or real estate investors is in place. The government doesn't want the banks to own the houses. The banks don't want to own the houses. And there's programs for it now.
Yeah, well, the thing that I love to show anytime I hear somebody bring up, when they try to make a point to position for a housing market crash, and you hit it on the head, they talk about foreclosure is going to be the thing that drives inventory up, that's going to drive home prices down like it did in 2008. I like to pull up this. This is like one of the greatest things I like to show, and you can see how far off we are. And we have an increase over 2021 and 2020, and we talked about the reason why was because of the moratoriums and all of the things that the government put in place, to your point, that got us in a position where you really couldn't have a foreclosure market. Well, if you look at where we're at right now of 164,000 foreclosures, and you go back to 08, 09, 2010, I mean, what are we? Maybe a million off from where we were at. I mean, a million. I don't know what the percentage is, but maybe 90% less foreclosures. I think the math actually probably works out. Maybe 90% less foreclosures in the market right now. And based on the brand new report from CoreLogic that shows that we're even down more than we were at last year, doesn't suggest, like the fearmongers want, to say this is what's going to crash the housing market.
Right.
It's interesting.
Absolutely.
So, anything you want to add to that?
No, you're right on, and trying to avoid being redundant. I agree.
There you go. All right, fair enough. So let's move on to some more good news, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Now, another thing that a lot of these people are positioning to be a huge issue is, and I'm not taking away for a second, we talked about this before we hit the recording. Are mortgage applications down? Yes. Are there less people buying houses right now? Yes. But we have to give it some context, and here's some good news that will help demand in 2023, which is, and I'll share the screen right now with the audience so they can see, this is right on the Federal Housing Finance Agency's website. They just came out with this on the 24th of October, which is amazing. The FHFA announces targeted pricing changes to enterprise pricing framework. What does this mean? Okay, so I'll highlight this so the people watching this on the YouTubes can follow along. As a part of the pricing changes stemming from the agency's ongoing review of the enterprise's pricing framework announced last year, FHFA is eliminating upfront fees for first-time homebuyers at or below 100% of their area median income, Home Ready and Home Possible loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac's flagship affordable mortgage programs, HFA Advantage and HFA Preferred Home Loans, and single-family loans supporting the Duty to Serve program. So let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
This is massive. This is such great news to help, regardless of what happens with interest rates, because here's the thing. Who cares what happens with interest rates? We know people are going to buy and sell houses.
Right.
If it's not $6 million, call it $5 million or $4.5 million.
Right.
People are going to buy and sell a house in 2023.
Yep.
This helps the buyer demand. So unpack what this means for people so the audience can understand the impact.
Sure. So there's, just to clarify a couple of things. So first of all, FHFA, hardest acronym in mortgage.
It is hard. I want to say FHA so much.
It's administration, agency, whatever. So the other part in there, the other acronym is LLPA. So that's Loan Level Pricing Adjustment. And I'm not going to go crazy into the weeds, but what that basically means
is... shucks. We really wanted you to.
Yeah, well, the number one question in mortage is that points? Or
right,
am I paying points?
Right. That's a great point.
And so there's two reasons that you
intended.
pay points. And there should be, and just to clarify it, then we'll say what this change means. So You pay points. One reason you pay them is you're paying upfront to buy yourself a lower interest rate for the life of the loan. So,
which by the way, and you don't have to rush through this. I agree. This is really good for the people to learn. That right there is all I think the consumer or even realtors really understand is that I'm paying points. I can rationalize I'm paying points to get a lower rate. But there's risk associated points, which you're about to get into, which nobody understands.
Exactly. So, and most people don't even care about the points. They don't want to know what the points are. They just want a yes or a no.
Right.
You know, when I talk to people and I hear loan officers, they're like, clients will say, "Am I paying points?" And they're like, "Oh, yes, you're paying 1 point. It costs
right.
$$100, and it's going to get you an $18 loan payment." You know
so
what I mean?
good.
I'm like, just tell them.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to pay them? Like, it's a question, right?
Yeah.
And you explain the difference, right? And it gets you a lower interest rate for the life of your loan because you pay more money up front. Or you can take a 0 point rate and you have a higher payment, but it's less cash out of pocket. The other side of that is what we call an LLPA, and that is a risk-based pricing adjustment. And so the way that works is, just to put it in some context here. So if you have a 740 credit score and you're going to put down 20% on a house, you pay half a point. So
Automatically.
So you have the top tier credit, you're putting down 20%. Everything is, you're meeting all the requirements. You get charged a half point by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac because that's just what you pay.
On any conventional loan.
Any conventional loan.
Got it.
Okay. So what you do is, if the 0 point rate is 6.875, maybe, and somebody says, I don't want to pay points. Okay, great. You're being charged a half a point by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. In order to avoid paying that half point, you can have an interest rate of 6.92%. It's a small increase, and it covers that half point. So maybe your payment's $20 more a month.
So far, this is so much better than yesterday. You must have ate your Wheaties. It's amazing. Way more easy to understand. Keep going.
All right, thanks. So, and then but it goes deeper than that, right? So now you have, and I don't want to call them like underserved or whatever it is. Maybe not that
people
model buyer, right?
Sure.
Somebody that's
less than perfect credit,
things like that. So if I'm a buyer and I'm coming in, I'm like, all right, I got Fannie Mae will allow you to put down 3% on a house. You say, okay, I want to do 3% down, and I've got a 680 credit score because that Kohl's card, didn't know it, got Kohl's cash, didn't pay. It was $26.
Hate when that happens.
Credit scores. Dude, Kohl's,
they kill you.
I don't have a lot of experience in Kohl's because I think that where the Kohl's near me has a crazy layout for the strip mall, so I've never really been. But all I know is that, like, when I see a Kohl's card on a credit report, 90% of the time those things are a problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you just get when you walk out? I don't know. So here's the thing. Your 680 credit score, you could pay 3 points in loan level price adjustments, or like risk-based pricing. So now on your $200,000 loan, you got an extra $6,000. It's 3%, right? So 1 point is 1% of the loan amount.
And we're talking about at a base rate, right? So just because you have less than perfect credit, like the perfect borrower has a half point risk associated points. The less than perfect credit has how many?
3 points.
3, okay. Off the rip.
And that's a pretty
wow.
A 680 credit score isn't like, I just gave up on paying people back and I had a car. A 680 credit score is like a 30-day late on a credit card can do that.
It's probably like an average credit score, you know?
Yeah, exactly,
so let me pause you for 1 second so the audience can keep up with us. So the average person with a 680 credit score, if they come to apply for a mortgage, the 0 point rate, meaning, hey, this is what the rate is today, there's going to be 3 points associated with the loan in cost because of the credit score. On a $200,000 loan, to your point, that's $9,000, right? Or $6,000. What FHFA has come out and said now is, hey, those are going to be gone.
Yes. So
unbelievable.
In certain scenarios,
right? Absolutely.
So that 3%. So there's two ways you do that. So you can have the same 6.875 and you pay $6,000.
Yep.
Or you could take a rate of like 7.625.
Sure.
And maybe you eat up all of those points,
Absolutely.
or a good chunk of them.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps your cash to closing down. But now you're on a $200,000 loan. Let's just say you're paying 0.75% more in rate. That's what, $1,500 a year. You're paying $125 more a month in interest for that 680 score. So what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, or the FHFA, has said to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is, we want to get rid of those loan level pricing adjustments. And there's a couple things in here, and getting into the weeds a little bit, but there's a number, or another acronym which you mentioned was AMI. So that's area median income. Right. So in Oakland County, Michigan, where we live, area median income is like $90,000 or something. And then, so they're going to reduce the LLPAs on people that make less than that amount of money or less, right?
Yep.
And then on the, what they call home ready and home possible, where they're totally going to eliminate these loan level pricing adjustments, that's for individuals that make 80% or less than that AMI, right? Or area median income. So in Michigan, that's $72,600. So as a loan officer, one of the things I'm looking for is I've got two borrowers, they're both working jobs. They're, 31 years old, out of college. They both make around $70,000 a year. They've got $140,000 gross income. As soon as I see those numbers, I'm like, okay, can we leave one of these two off the loan? So now I'm like, who's got the higher credit score?
Yeah.
But we've got equal salaries. Let's leave, Tommy off the loan, but we put him on the title. Now we qualify for this program where we can avoid some of these costs, and we're going to be under that income number, and they've got a lot better a lot better financing options. So those are really, really solid loan products. And what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, by eliminating these, it's not lowering rates, but it is.
Yeah. So here's what I wrote down:
decreasing the cost to borrow money.
Yeah. So let me give a practical example of how this might play out in the real world.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got two scenarios I wrote down. As a result of this new information, we'll call it Bob and Sue. Okay, so my coaching clients know that that's who I use for everything is Bob and Sue. Bob and Sue is everything. So Bob and Sue come to you, Steve, and they want to get a mortgage, and they want to buy a house, and they have less than perfect credit. As an example, if they're getting a $200,000 mortgage, if they get the 0-point rate before this, we talked about there being $6,000 that they would have to bring to the table to get that 0-point rate, or they'd have to get a higher rate to offset the cost. That's the old news. Now, the new information is you meet with Bob and Sue based on the new information, and they can do one of two things. They can either A, say, wow, are you telling me, Steve, as a result of this, that I now have to come to the table with $6,000 less out of my pocket, which is true, yes?
Yeah.
Insane.
And you're getting that market rate, and you're getting that prime rate, right?
Yes.
You're getting a better interest rate.
Or, here's the other thing I wrote down, or Bob and Sue, because they're so responsible, they say, well, heck, I was going to have to pay this $6,000 anyway. What does it look like to put the $6,000 into my rate?
Right.
Meaning investing in the rate into the payment. And so this is just, and so before I let off on that point, meaning they could put the $6,000 into the rate, you buy down the interest rate so that Bob and Sue then can get a lower payment.
Right.
And Bob and Sue can make that choice. The point of this is so huge that it's going to help, I believe, a lot more buyers get into homes as a result in 2023, which will help the whole demand because, again, one of the biggest issues with mortgage interest rates going up so much, it's taking so many buyers out of the market. Maybe this gets them off the sidelines, get them back in the game potentially.
Right. And this is there's a huge benefit here for real estate agents too, because if we've learned anything in the last 24 months, it's that everybody hates FHA loans regardless of whether or not
yes. This is a great point.
So as a loan officer, I don't like, there's no worse call than you call an agent like, hey, Brandon, congratulations. I got your client pre-approved. They're pre-approved at $300,000. They're putting down 3.5%, and we're on an FHA loan. And all of a sudden they're like, They're like, whoa, dude, FHA? Like, great. Here we go.
Yep.
So one of the things about an FHA loan is it doesn't have the same LLPAs. Like it doesn't have that risk-based pricing adjustment. Like some lenders that I'll work with, they'll have, as long as you're a 620 to an 800, you get the same exact loan terms. Some lenders, there might be a little bit of a difference on the lower end of the scores. But for the most part, you're getting the same deal. So on a conventional loan or Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, when you got under a 700 score, it became so unappealing to do one of those loans because the cost to do the loan was significantly more. The PMI would be more and the rate would be more. So you just say, look, you qualify for an FHA, or you qualify for a conventional loan, but the terms of the FHA are so much better. And they're like, I would have clients like, well, I would rather take the worst terms on the conventional loan this to get my offer accepted. So this will take a lot of these FHA buyers that are good buyers that could qualify for conventional, but their score priced them out of it. Well, now those FHA buyers are becoming conventional buyers.
It's amazing.
Which again should turn over, higher returns for sellers, a smoother, easier process for agents, and all those kind of things too.
I mean, that might be more important than anything that was mentioned before.
Yeah.
The fact that, because you're exactly right. So primarily as a listing agent, if I get an offer, and to your point, from you and your buyer's agent, and it's on FHA, I'm like,
let's see what else we get.
Exactly right. So you're saying that as a result of this information, that those buyers can now get a conventional mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not every case, right? Like there's some more flexibility.
I know, yep.
You know, like that.
You're protecting yourself.
Disclaimer
CYA.
Dan
Disclaimer Dan. That's your new name. But it's possible.
It is better. Yeah, it'll be. There's been a lot of cases where I'm like, hey, like the FHA loan is better for you. Like it's going to work better for you than the conventional. And they're like, well, I just really want a shot at this house, so I'm going to do the conventional loan.
Which makes sense. And I'm not going to argue with them on that. All right, so now let's shift gears. Let's talk about mortgage rates a bit.
Okay.
Because this is the other thing that people claiming that there's a housing market crash coming in 2023 are hanging their hats on this. You and I just did a video when we broke down Patrick Bet-David's 2008 housing crash all over again video, where he and many others are hanging their hat on interest rates going from 7% to 9% to 12% to 15%. I mean, I've heard some people say we're going back to 18% interest rates. Well,
do you know what the Fed rate was then?
No.
The rates were 18%?
What was it?
They were like 13% or something.
Yeah, and we're like, what? What are we at right now? 3?
Less than 4. It's like 3.25%.
Yeah. So before I show this video that I'm about to show to the audience, where my head goes at, you've got people on YouTube giving their opinion.
Yeah.
And they get, I don't understand how it is this case. I guess it's just human psychology. They are able to pull millions of people from around the world to buy into that narrative. But then when you have experts, people who are the ones actually holding the paper, making the decisions on what those rates may look like, nobody watches. Nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
One of those people, because here's the thing, all these videos are pulling reports, Steve. When I say all these videos, I'm referring to the videos that people make on the housing market crash. The fear mongers, right?
Right.
They use reports from Redfin, and a lot of them use them from the Mortgage Banker Association because they're having a field day with how low mortgage applications are. Well, there was a great video I texted you yesterday from the chief economist from the MBA, and it was a phenomenal interview, and it was maybe 6 minutes long. I want to show 2 clips from that video.
Okay.
And I want to talk them through. So let's jump into the first.
Percent just a year ago. That's according to Freddie Mac. Let's talk about the housing picture with Mike Fratantoni, Chief Economist and Senior Vice President at the Mortgage Bankers Association. Good to see you, sir. So where are these rates headed? Will we see 8 before we see 6?
It's a good question. And I would say one of the prime features of the market today is just an incredibly high level of volatility. Rates are bouncing around like crazy. So if you look at the 10-year Treasury today, it's down about 40 basis points from a recent high. And that tends to be a benchmark that mortgage rates track pretty closely. So day to day, it's unclear where we're headed. But I think over the next 6-12 months, we're likely to see mortgage rates lower than we see them today.
How much lower, Mike, do you think?
So our forecast is probably back to about a 5.5% rate. So I don't see any way we get down to the 3% rate we had in 2020 and 2021. But 7% is really unsustainably high as well. And we think there's 2 forces out there. The Fed is pushing up short-term rates to try to combat inflation. But on the other hand, we're forecasting a recession for next year. And there's a lot of global weakness that's going to be putting some downward pressure on longer term rates. And that'll really be helping to bring mortgage rates back down to a more typical longer rate.
So that's what's so interesting. So you have somebody who you could make the argument has their finger more, maybe one of the people in the country that's the closest to mortgage interest rates. This was yesterday.
You want to know an argument that people will make against that?
Tell me.
That in the fear world, right?
Please.
Is that they'll say that he's the vice president, or what was his title? The
chief economist for the MBA.
For the Mortgage Bankers Association.
Yeah.
They'll say it serves him to have lower rates. Like that guy doesn't benefit with anything. Like the Mortgage Bankers Association, they're not like out there collecting a royalty on 3% rates. Like that doesn't work like that. That's
Right.
simply like an advocacy group and a group that manages compliance and ethics and all kinds of things. And they also forecast mortgage applications and things like that. Low rates, high rates, it doesn't make a difference to them day to day. Barry Habib, who tracks the markets and talks about what the rates and things like that are doing, the low rates or high rates, it's not any better or any worse for either of those two people. All they're doing is analyzing what their projections for the markets are based on the most up-to-date, thorough, accurate information that you could possibly have, and then they're making a prediction on what those rates are. It's not because a lower rate benefits them that they would predict lower rates.
That's my exact point.
Yeah.
That is my exact point. That's why I when I saw this and I sent it to you last night is because of that very thing, is that people that don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, right? They have no, it's not for or against their own interests what mortgage rates do. Whether mortgage rates go to 17 or 5%, this guy's life changes nothing.
Right.
And so, however, people that are spreading the fear do have interest in a narrative that maybe goes against this.
Right.
And so that's, I think, what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%.
And that is the point of the content that we're making on this channel right now, is to get information from people that don't have a bias towards the outcome.
Right.
And 100%. So the other thing is, so mortgage interest rates, again, we've shared many things about mortgage rate projections into 2023. And the Mortgage Banker Association believe that rates will come back down into the mid-5s, which is what you and I also believe. Well, he was also asked a great question, because the other thing is, well, we're headed back to 2008 and all this stuff, and here's why. He was asked that very question in this interview. So let me share with you this. I thought how he answered this was pretty interesting.
Okay, so what does this tell you just about the comparisons that some people are drawing to today to what we saw about 15 years ago?
Yeah, I would say it's night and day, right? 2006, 2007, you had a housing boom like we'd never seen before. You saw very loose mortgage credit, and you saw really an abundant supply of homes on the market. Coming into this, housing supply was really quite tight. Credit criteria are extremely tight, both because of what lenders are doing, and then really some of the regulations that were put in post Great Financial Crisis have really locked in really traditional underwriting and sound credit behavior. So,
all right. So again, you have talking heads who say this is going to be 2008 all over again. But then you have the real experts, the real professionals that say, no, this is nothing like 2008. It couldn't be more different than 2008, but it doesn't get the click.
It's supply and demand. I mean, that's the easy, and we'll get into that more with like housing appreciation and figures and stuff like that. But going back to those times, and again, and a lot, it's funny because I'll get like people commenting on my stuff and saying things, and I'm like, this person's 23 years old.
Yeah.
They were 13.
I know.
In the last recession. Like, they had no idea what the housing market was
like.
I mean, even if you look at like with listings that are not completed, right?
Yeah.
Like, so all the construction, new construction, like that, there didn't used to be that. There used to be a Pulte neighborhood where they would just be like, all right, we're going to build 67 houses.
Yeah.
This is what they're going to look like. This is what they're going to get. And we're just going to start building them and the buyers will come. We're now, I mean, on a Pulte home, you've got to have, a large deposit on the property. You're more involved. Like it just, you have to have a rate lock. Like some of the builders are requiring you have a locked interest rate for 180 days before they'll even start your home. You know what I mean? Like it's such a different world without that speculative. There's that's the real estate speculator. Sometimes I screw up these hard words. Like
I know.
A moratorium. That one gets me rhetoric or rhetoric. I don't know. But anyway.
It's rhetoric.
We don't know that. So, and then
rhetoric. It's not rhetoric.
I don't know that.
Okay.
All right. But I digress.
Yeah.
So, but the real estate speculators is on the sideline right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You just don't see spec homes being built everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. I love the whole thought around people on the sidelines giving their opinion. You know, it's like the overweight person at a basketball game saying, "Oh, you should have ran the play this way."
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Why didn't he dunk?
Why didn't he dunk? Yeah, that's the best. All right, so let's shift gears. Let's talk about the Case-Shiller Home Price Index that came out this week as well. More big news that the the fearmongers just absolutely cannot stand. None of which made a video on. None of which do any type of commentary on this. But what we're doing is we're spreading. I wouldn't even call it good news. We're the
data.
facts. It's just data.
Yeah, just the data.
You have to give all of the data.
Right.
You cannot manipulate the data, take one part of the data's, communicate that and say that's what's happening. No. Well, you have to give the full story. So the Case-Shiller Home Price Index came out, and they looked at two things. It looked at home price appreciation, and the headline that is so it confuses a lot of people.
Yeah.
The appreciation that's rapidly slowing was the headline. Well, let's take a little
By
peek,
the way,
shall
which
we?
was the chicken, I think we said that nobody liked that chicken in the past because it was pricing people out of the market, right? The home appreciation rates were so high.
Yeah.
And we knew they were completely unsustainable. And we were talking a year ago, we're like, this is crazy.
Yep.
And eventually it's going to stop and level off. And here we are. I'm sorry.
No.
The chicken and the egg was still on my mind.
Yeah, what you're saying is exactly right. I mean, all last year, people were bitching and complaining around not enough houses for sale, multiple offers. I can't get my offers accepted. Home prices are too much. And now that prices are normalizing and the market's normalizing, we don't like that either. But let's look at the report. So figure one. Here is the August home price appreciation that shows rapid slowing. But when you really look at the graph, which is so confusing for a lot of people, listen, these guys, just so you know, side note, do you know how many videos are made on this right now? There's going to be 17 videos that hit YouTube today
about this graph.
About that right there.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're not going to show anything else. They're not going to show the rest of the graph. They're just going to show this decline.
Right.
And oh, by the way, what does this actually mean, Steve? Because for the person who looks at this and says, wow, 13%, what does that mean? Does that mean prices are down 13%? No, what does it mean?
So that's a year-over-year home price appreciation. So
Let's
home values today are 13% higher than they were 1 year ago. That's the year-over-year price appreciation. So
exactly right.
Month over month. So this, and again, this, am I getting ahead? I don't want to get
No, you're not. What it's showing is that they were up. So they were up 20%.
Yes.
Last year.
Right.
The graph now shows that they're only up 13%.
That's the thing where you have to keep in mind. So, right. So you have August of 2020 to August of 2021. Home values were up 21%, or was it 19%, whatever, around 20, right?
Yep.
And then from August of 2021 to August of 2022, values were up another 13%. Now, from July 2022 to August of 2022, so the month over month, they were down 1.1%.
Yep, which I'll show the audience now.
If you look at a lot of the conversation out there, right, is that home values are going to drop 20%.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. We're not here saying that home values are going to go up. We're not saying that the housing market's in great shape.
Right.
And to pin all your hopes and dreams on this equity that you're going to have in your house. What we're sitting here telling you is that it's not what it seems. So if your home value, let's just say that happens. You've got a $400,000 home today, and it goes down 20%. So if you look at that home value would go down to $320,000.
That's right.
However, out of that 400,000, you gained $52,000 to $56,000 in that value this year.
Right.
By looking at that 13% gain in the value of that house. Like, it's not okay, fine. Like, you would have been fine. Like, everybody last year was really, really excited about the value of their house. Like, we were jamming.
Well, here's the
I
point.
sold my house.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing I want people to take away from this conversation. To your point, let's look at the graph.
I think I got lost.
No, it's all right. Listen. This is so important. If we go back to 2014 and you look at home price appreciation, so 0%, anything lower than that would be that home prices were going down.
Right.
So from 2013 onward, we saw home appreciation average about 5%. year over year. Then as a result of the statistical anomaly, which is the pandemic,
Yep.
home price appreciation, which we've never seen in the history of the earth, goes up 20%. Now stick with me on the graph. Now home price appreciation has dropped to only 13%. What you're saying is if homeowners cut this 20% gain, right, and you just cut it out, they'd still be further ahead now based on average price appreciation than they were pre-pandemic.
Right. And none of that even matters. What matters is it a bubble or not? Is it a crash
yeah, that's
or
right.
not? And keeping if you draw that line straight across and you looked at what that number was, you'd say that is not a bubble.
No, it's not.
You know?
It's not. And so, and that's the thing, that's probably a great segue to maybe end with, is that our position, just you nailed it, is not that the housing market isn't cooling off. It's not that we don't have challenges. It's none of those.
Right.
Our position is that when people talk about a housing market crash, the correlation has to be home prices.
Right.
My position, our position, I think, that I want the world to know is that we don't believe that there's going to be a housing crash that's correlated to home prices.
Right.
Will things slow down? Yes. Will inventory go up? Yes. Will home sales slow down? Yes. But I don't believe that a house that's worth $400,000 today, that next year it's going to be worth $200,000.
Right.
I just don't believe that.
I don't either. And none of the evidence suggests that.
No, not even close.
And there's other factors. And I mean, one of those that never really gets talked about is that there's something called interest rate lock, right? And it's not the interest rate lock where you lock your rate and you close at the same rate.
Right.
It's that there are a large group of people out there that refinance their home, which not enough people did. Not enough people refinanced in the last 2 years to really take advantage. There's still high rates out there, but that's beside the point. The point is that a lot of the homes that are out there that would be great contenders to be sold and great homes to move into have a seller saying, I will move out of this house, but I need this price to take on a rate at 6% or 6.25% to give up my 2 3/4. And as much as it's not like a measurable thing yet, but it will be, I can promise you that, is that like there's so many of those little nuances that make up what people will and won't accept for the price of their home, that you just can't mistake the lack of activity for a decrease in property values or the precipice of a crash.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a great point. So listen, as we end this update, we're going to do another one. The Fed meets Wednesday, November 2nd. I think it's pretty locked in that they're going to raise again 3/4 of a point, which is fine. I like what you say is after the press conference, the questions in which Mr. Powell gets asked by the media has major implications. Can you talk about that for a second? And then, because that'll be the next update we do for you guys. And like we say all the time, if you get value from this content, and we're not suggesting that you are, but if you are, feel free to subscribe. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. If we're just total BS and you just hate our shit, you can change your mind later. So why don't you leave the audience with what you mean by the questions being asked after the press conference?
Yeah. So the way, when you look at mortgage, like any type of market, right, it's influenced by something. There has to be something that influences like volatility or trading values of certain things, right? Like Elon Musk buying Twitter will influence the value of that Twitter stock. Like walking in with the sink and then going in there and firing the CEO and the CFO. Do you know he did that? He walked into Twitter with the sink and he's like, let that sink in. I own Twitter now. And he walked in with like a
no
sink.
Shit.
Yeah, he's really funny.
So, but to go into your point, just because he bought without anything tangible happening is what you're saying can impact markets.
Can impact the market. So after that, the one thing that everybody's...
It's one of our best shows, I think.
Everybody is... Yeah, right?
I'm not kidding.
I agree. I think they're all great, but I'm an optimist, as we always say. Just kidding. So, but the thing about the press conference after is there's... The inflation is the monster in the room, and everybody wants to know what the hell is happening with inflation. They're looking for anything to say inflation is going to go up.
Right.
And they're looking for anything to say that inflation is going to go down. So what are they looking for in this meeting? And there's one word that is in the economic world that everything's really hinging on, and that's a pivot, right? So the Fed is currently on a meteoric rise, right? Like they are raising rates. They're like, we don't care like what I call him, King. Is it King Kong? Is he the lizard that tore up the city? Like they don't care. They're just going to keep raising rates, not looking
Lizard,
at
monkey,
they're basing it on like
something there.
They're looking at like all this lagging data. Well, now what we've seen in this week are murmurs from the Fed, and that's how the Fed gives information. They do it through like leaks and like little things to the press and stuff like that. And they've already mentioned that, hey, I think that the 0.75% at a time is a little too much. What are your thoughts on a 0.5%? And so literally just that has changed the whole trajectory of rates this week. And while today was a little bit different, we got some inflation news today, but that press conference, anything that Jerome Powell says that indicates like, hey, we might take our foot off the gas a little bit will be great for rates. Any indication that he's not going to take his foot off the gas will cause volatility. So people have said, are we going to see rates hit 8, 9, 10%? Maybe. You know, we're not saying that can't happen. If it did, it would be very, very short-lived. And again, looking back at, you know, people are like, don't you remember the 80s?
Yeah.
This and that. I'm like, you have no, like, what was happening in the 80s with a gas crisis, and
Right.
all, like an oil crisis? And I mean, it was such a wildly, wildly different time that Fed rates were like 18%.
Yeah.
You know, to get mortgage rates up that high, like we're so far from that. If we went up to 8% or we went up to 9%, it's something I would touch on that. But there's certain times when those securities that are trading at such a high yield, there's buyers for those. It creates demand and it brings those things back down. So that press conference after, people will really be biting at, what are your plans for the next meeting? We've heard that you might do this. And those responses from him will be very vanilla, but every single word will be picked apart. So it'll be interesting, and that's why that matters.
Yeah, and maybe we'll watch it live. I'm trying to figure out if that makes sense or not, or if we watch it then make a video, but we'll figure that out. It'll be kind of cool if we could watch it live.
Yeah.
And then just give the wonderful people that watch our show just literally second by second updates on what's being said, what's being communicated, but
for sure.
We'll play it by ear.
So watch the market too. See what it does.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I appreciate you like always, and we'll see you guys in the next update very soon.
Thanks, guys.